Hey y'all! Cloudstone Curious here, talking about brewing budget decks. I design fun commander decks that play well and, hopefully, win at the $100 price range, excluding the price of the commander and basic lands. Prices are based on TCG player mid at the time of the deck's creation. The link to the full deck list can be found in the description below. I'm still relatively new to content creation, so any thoughts and feedback you may have will be greatly appreciated. If you want to watch more content like this, help me grow my channel by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Let's get to it! Our commander for today is Ashaya, Soul of the Wild. Ashaya is 3 colorless and 2 green legendary creature elemental. And Ashaya reads, Ashaya, Soul of the Wild's power and toughness are each equal to the number of lands you control. Non-token creatures you control are forest lands in addition to their other types. That means your non-token creatures can tap for mana, although they are affected by summoning sickness. This also means that your non-token creatures can contribute to Ashaya's power and toughness, thus making Ashaya even bigger. So, how are we going to win with Ashaya? Well, the primary win condition for Ashaya will be Voltron. So we will swing with a huge Ashaya, and we'll give Ashaya some form of evasion through stuff like Canopy Cover. Canopy Cover is an aura that gives our creature the ability to not be blocked except by creatures with flying or reach, and also hexproof. So this protects Ashaya, prevents Ashaya from being removed, and allows us to swing, increasing the likelihood that we will connect with enough commander damage. Additionally, we have lands like Rogue's Passage, which gives Ashaya unblockable or prevents Ashaya from being blocked. And also, we have Garruk's Uprising to give Ashaya trample. So these effects will help you deal the 21 damage that you need to deal to win the game or to at least defeat one opponent. Now, aside from the primary win condition of Voltron, we do have other win conditions in the deck. The secondary win condition would be through the use of creatures like Frozen Restorer and Ley Weaver. So these creatures can be used to help with your ramp, but they also combo really well with Ashaya, given Ashaya's second ability, where non-token creatures you control are forest lands in addition to their other types. So you might see where we're going with this, but let me illustrate. Let's say you have a forest and you tap the forest for green mana. You can tap Ley Weaver, targeting the forest and itself, causing both to untap, and you can target Ley Weaver again because of Ashaya's second ability. This means you can do this over and over again and generate infinite green mana. Now, what are we going to do with that green mana in mono green? Well, first, we can use something like Helix Pinnacle, which is a 1 to cast enchantment, so 1 green for an enchantment, Shroud, and pay X mana to put X tower counters on Helix Pinnacle. And at the beginning of your upkeep, if there are 100 or more tower counters on Helix Pinnacle, you win the game. Additionally, you can also use something like Goblin Cannon, which reads, pay 2 and Goblin Cannon deals 1 damage to target creature or player, sacrifice Goblin Cannon. Now, we can just stack the ability over and over again, hold priority, and not let the ability resolve, because the sacrifice part is really just a part of the effect and not a part of the cost. So you can put in as much mana as you want. Since you have infinite mana, you can take out all your opponents in one turn, if you have infinite mana, to win the game. So again, this is the secondary win condition. There are not a lot of cards that support this combo in the deck, but it's there if you find yourself pillow forted out or your commander is just incapacitated. This is one way to win the game. But if you don't use this combo, Ley Weaver and Frozen Restorer are still good ways to help you with your ramp. So before we get to the deck, let's talk strategy. So the strategy for this deck is as follows. First, you go for the beatdown, but you're rarely swinging wide. There are several creatures in the deck that are huge, but not a lot. And you're probably not going to win with tokens or a whole bunch of creatures flooding the board. Although there is that option, but it's not always going to be the most reliable way to win the game. So you want to put the pressure on your opponents by swinging with big creatures and making sure that you're connecting with Ashaya. So you are the beatdown in this game. Next, keep your commander on the board. Whether you're going for Voltron or the combo win, keeping your commander on the board is crucial because your commander really is the linchpin of your plan. If you don't have your commander on the board, you can't combo off because you're not able to untap your Ley Weaver. And obviously, if you don't have your commander on the board, you can't win with commander damage. Can you still win with the other creatures? Yes. But as much as possible, keep your commander on the board. Next, fight strategically. What I mean by this is that there are several fight spells in the deck that allow you to take out creatures. The key here is identifying which creatures you should be taking out. Don't take out creatures that can also swing with fight because you can just block or you can put the pressure on your opponent so that they block with those creatures. Take out the creatures that are utility, that are not likely to block because they're keeping your opponent safe, because they're enabling your opponent's game plan. Stuff like Seedborn Muse, something like Nekuzar. These are the commanders or creatures that you should be taking out with fight. And in doing so, you're slowing down your opponent. You're making sure that they're not progressing their game plan. And if they have blockers, then they'll put the blockers up, and that's fine. So fight strategically. You have a lot of fight spells, but it's not infinite. We do have recursion, but it's still a mono green deck. So be mindful of your resources. Next, ramp, ramp, ramp. So this is all about putting lands into play to make Ashaya bigger, as well as your other creatures that rely on your land count to be big and powerful and stompy. So ramp, ramp, ramp. This includes casting creatures that not only fetch lands, but the creatures themselves with Ashaya on the board will act as forests and will boost your commander's power and toughness because of Ashaya's own ability. So always go for the ramp. Always try to ramp every turn if you can. If there's nothing better to do, ramp. And another reminder is because of Ashaya's ability, you're safe from most board wipes. So anything that targets non-land permanents won't really hurt you. So I say Cyclonic Rift will not hurt you as badly if you have Ashaya on the board. This has happened to me several times. An opponent casts Cyclonic Rift, thinking that I'll lose my board, then I have to remind them that, hey, these are lands, so they don't get bounced to my hand. That does mean, though, that your Ashaya is prone to stuff like Ghost Quarter, Strip Mine, Wasteland. So that is the trade-off. Very easy removal, very hard to protect against if that's the case. But for most effects that target non-land permanents or that affect non-land permanents, your board's safe. And we're actually going to take advantage of that, and I'll get to it later on. And finally, don't telegraph the combo. Now, it's very tempting to just go for the combo, and if you're gonna go off, you're gonna go off. But don't reveal what the combo is because you will draw heat. You will draw fire. What is the combo? It's what I explained earlier, but something like Helix Pinnacle is really just gonna be very inviting for opponents because they can't deal with, for the most part, they cannot deal with Helix Pinnacle because of Shroud. So if you can't remove the enchantment, you remove the player. You don't want that. And it doesn't make sense to have the Pinnacle on the board unless you're already going infinite, because you're not going to get the 100 mana manually unless you're comboing off. So cast it if you're about to combo off. If not, then just keep it in hand and, wait for the combo. Wait for your spot. Goblin Cannon can be used if you're clearing blockers. If you're going for the win, I would suggest to use Goblin Cannon. That is one way to make effective use of it. There's some recursion in the deck so that you can get back the Goblin Cannon. But for the most part, if you're going for the combo, don't communicate it, don't telegraph it. Make sure that your opponents are surprised, are off guard, because they're not going to be used to seeing mono green combo off in this way. So that is our strategy. Let's get to the cards that make the deck. First off, Mana Ramp. So for our Mana Ramp, we have several here. We have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 17, I believe. 17 effects that either add more mana or boosts our mana. So we have stuff like Beanstalk Giant, or actually in this case we care about it as the Adventure Fertile Footsteps. So it's not a good rate. 3 mana for 1 land is not a good rate, but you do get Beanstalk Giant, which can be a beater later on. For 7 mana, 6 colorless and 1 green, you get a Giant whose power and toughness are each equal to the number of lands you control. So similar to Ashaya's ability, plus it's when Ashaya's on the board, it's also a land, so it counts itself. So that's definitely a huge beater at a certain point. But if nothing else, it's still a good ramp. Not great, but it'll get you there. Also, we have Vastwood Surge. Now, cards like Vastwood Surge and another card that I cut here because there wasn't any space left, Migration Path. These are cards that prove that you don't need to run Explosive Vegetation. So it's Vastwood Surge. For the kicker, it does the same thing. It's strictly better because there's kicker. If you want to use that, I rarely use it. I don't ever find myself needing to add the counters. But, I mean, there are effects in the deck that care about that, so we can explore it. But there is no need to run Explosive Vegetation. So, cards like this and Migration Path, because you can cycle it out. Circuitous Route, because you can get gates. So again, really good in this deck. You have the option, and I like flexibility. So I'm keeping Vastwood Surge. Next, we go to our card draw and recursion. Now, I put these two together because I think recursion is basically graveyard shooter. So it's really good in getting multiple effects to happen. That's why I'm confident in playing fewer effects like fight, because I can just recur them as needed. So for our card draw and recursion, we have the following cards. And let's focus on first Road of Return. Road of Return is 2 green, sorcery, choose one. Return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand, or put your commander into your hand from the command zone. Now, Ashaya is going to draw a lot of heat. It's going to get removed a lot. So having this as an option to get the commander either from your command zone, or if you want to leave it in your graveyard because you know you're going to be able to get it anyway, you can also leave that there. If you have the mana, you can entwine, get another card from your graveyard, get a permanent, maybe a blocker, or maybe another beater. So that's also an option. So good flexibility on the card. It is sorcery speed, but most recursion cards are sorcery speed anyway. So it's pretty good in this deck. Next, we have Hunter's Prowess. Now, a lot of the draw here are conditional. You need to have your creature, you need to be able to connect. But Hunter's Prowess not only gets you to draw cards, but it boosts your commander and gives it trample. So it wins in 2 ways. It's very easy for the commander. I mean, if you just have the 5 basic lands when you cast your commander's a 6/6 automatically. The turn after, you draw a land, you play it, and then you cast Hunter's Prowess. You're swinging for 10 damage with trample. And when you connect, you're going to be drawing cards. So this is a pretty good card in this deck. And it I found myself many times having more cards in hand than I know what to do. So surprisingly, for a green deck, this draws a lot of cards. So you have another effect that's similar in Hunter's Insight. Similar effect where if it deals damage, then you draw cards. Next, let's talk about targeted removal. So for targeted removal, we have the following. So we talked about fight cards, and here, and I've highlighted it here, I forgot to remove the highlights, but Ulvenwald Tracker is a creature that lets your creatures fight other creatures. So this draws a lot of removal because your opponents will know about this, will know what it does. They'll make the connection really easily. And that's okay. If it draws removal, then it's one less removal for your commander to worry about. And again, you can recur it. So for 1 green, you get a 1/1 human shaman. And for 1 colorless and 1 green tap, target creature you control fights another target creature. With your commander out, you can take out a lot of creatures. You can take out blockers. You can take out at instant speed too. So it's pretty good. And then you also have Introduction to Annihilation. Now, this is a new card from Strixhaven. It's not the best rate, I would say, but you are in green, so 5 mana isn't that problematic. It exiles target non-land permanent, and its controller draws a card, and it's sorcery speed. So again, not the best spell, but it's 2 less than a similar effect. I forget. The 7 to cast, exile target non-land permanent, or is it target permanent? So it's 2 less to cast than that card, but it's also the disadvantage that your opponent gets to draw a card. Is this a good removal spell? Not by any chance, but you are in green again, so you take what you can. This is good for targeting stuff that green is usually bad at. Creatures you can remove in case you don't have the fight. Anything that has indestructible, you can remove with this. If you have an opponent who's pillow forting a planeswalker, then you can use Introduction to Annihilation to take out the planeswalker. So you're in mono green again, so mana's not gonna be an issue, but also you don't really have a lot of options when it comes to removal. So we take what we can. Next, we go to board wipes. So for our board wipes, we have these 5 cards. Let's talk about Apex Altisor first. Apex Altisor is 9 to cast, 7 colorless and 2 green, a dinosaur. When it enters the battlefield, it fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. So it can fight up to 1, but if you don't want to fight anything, then that's fine. And then when it's dealt damage, it can fight another target creature. So you can actually wipe your opponent's field with this 10/10. Just make sure that you're dealing or you're sequencing your fight triggers properly to clear the board. So really good card. Again, 9 mana, but you're in green, so it's still a pretty good card. Pretty good rate for that. And if it survives, then you have a 10/10 beater. And then next would be Perilous Vault. Now, Perilous Vault is 4 to cast artifact, pay 5 and tap it, and then exile it. Exile all non-land permanents. This is really important because this exiles all non-land permanents. As I pointed out earlier, your creatures with Ashaya out are lands. So this is a pretty much a one-sided board wipe if you can pull it off. And again, you're in green. 9 mana isn't that difficult. It has gotten me out of really tight spots before and let me win the game because I could, for 9 mana, on my turn, wipe everything out from my opponent's side and have creatures ready to swing. So it's pretty good. Oblivion Stone functions the same way, but it doesn't exile, it destroys. So you still get your death triggers or stuff with indestructible gets around it, but it's still a good effect. So I put it in the deck. Next, we talk about enablers. We talk about cards that enable our game plan of Voltron and combo. And first, we talk about how do we make sure that our commander's protected, that our commander gets through. So, crop rotation seems like a weird card here. A lot of people think that this is ramp. This is not ramp. It doesn't get you more lands. It gets you a specific land. In this case, the specific land that we want is Rogue's Passage. Getting Rogue's Passage onto the field at instant speed at the end of an opponent's turn will let you connect with your commander, with Ashaya, on the following turn. So this is a pretty good card. Crop rotation also functions in different ways. If you have an opponent with Gaia's Cradle, then you crop rot for a Ghost Quarter. Take it out. Or you have an opponent who casts Living Death or Rise of the Dark Realms. You can crop rotation for a Scavenger Grounds and then activate the Scavenger Grounds to exile the graveyards of all players. So it's good because, again, it's instant speed. You can do a lot. Next is Kamal's Will. This is a relatively new card. Kamal's Will, choose one. If you control a commander as you cast a spell, you may choose both. Until end of turn, any number of target lands you control become 1/1 elemental creatures with vigilance, indestructible, and haste. They're still lands. And choose target creature you don't control. Each creature you control deals damage equal to its power to that creature. The second one will not be that relevant. The first one is, with Ashaya out, a cheaper version of, cheaper meaning dollar-wise, a cheaper version of, I'm drawing a blank. The 2 to cast, give everything, hexproof and indestructible. Why am I drawing a blank? It's so weird. I'll probably add it in the video. But it protects your stuff. The fight thing, or not really the fight, the damage thing, sure, you can use it, but it's not going to be as relevant. So for 4 mana, protect your stuff at instant speed. Make sure that your commander is going to stay on the board so that it can deal damage. Next, let's talk about our beaters. So these will also enable your commander to deal damage because these are also threats. If your commander is taken out, you can still win with these creatures. But if your commander's on the board, then it makes your opponent's blocking choices more difficult. So we have Dungrove Elder, 2 colorless and 1 green, creature, tree folk, hexproof, very important. And power and toughness are each equal to the number of forests you control. So not all lands, but forests. But again, Ashaya turns all your non-token creatures into forests. So barring any of the utility lands that are non-forests, you will basically have another version of Ashaya that's also hexproof for 3 mana. So that's not a bad rate. Another is Avenger of Zendikar. So I mentioned that you're not really swinging wide in this case, but I mean, you're in green, you're ramping. Avenger of Zendikar makes sense in this deck. So we're going to put it there. You will have a lot of lands anyway. Now, very important, the tokens are not forests because Ashaya explicitly cares about non-token creatures. So the plants won't tap for green. But if you are able to cast Avenger of Zendikar and then say you have 8 mana to cast your ramp, your Vastwood Surge, and then pay the kicker, you're gonna get 4+1/+1 counters on your plants, and then swing for wide. Another option, also a Hail Mary blocker, so you get a bunch of tokens on the field to protect yourself against an opponent that's about to swing wide. And finally, let's get to lands. So we have Emergent Zone, Ghost Quarter, Scavenger Grounds, Tyrite Sanctum. Emergent Zone, very important so that you can cast stuff at instant speed. Give your commander pseudo haste if you can with Emergent Zone. And then Tyrite Sanctum, just another level of another layer of protection. For 2 mana, turn it into a god and put a +1/+1 counter on it. And then for 4 mana, make your Ashaya indestructible. So a level of protection, never hurt anyone. It's pretty good, and you do have a lot of green sources anyway, so adding this land won't really affect the ability to produce green mana. So that is Ashaya in a nutshell. It's a fun deck to pilot. It's not as, I would say, it's not as cerebrally intensive as other decks because it's pretty straightforward. You want your Ashaya to swing, you want your Ashaya to deal damage. The biggest challenges mentally would be considering um, how you're going to fight, how you're going to remove stuff, uh, and who you're going to prioritize when it comes to swinging with your commander. Because again, it's a Voltron deck. You can take out one opponent at a time, so you need to pick your spots. Alright, well, that was Ashaya Soul of the Wild. It's a very fun deck to pilot. The deck list is again in the description below. If you found this material interesting, if you found this video interesting, please leave a comment. If you think that I missed any important cards, anything that I can put in the deck that would not put me over budget, let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And as always, I hope your day is going well.